JS is a weird language, and it has so many secrets and advanced tips. In this playlist, we are going to deep dive into every single one of them one by one. Let's see. Have you ever seen json.stringify second and third argument? What are they? I can assure you, maybe more than 99% of the JS developers doesn't even know what is the second and the third arguments for json.stringify. Believe me, this is a very interesting topic. Okay, let's get started. Okay, here we are. Now we have a object which is user, and it has name, company, age, password, and address, which is another object. And we have a birth date in here which has a date, and it's a date object. And in here we console.log json.stringify user null and 2. Okay, let's see the result. Such as you see, our object is converted to a stringified string. The first item is the object we are going to stringify it. The second item is replacer. It can be a function or it can be a whitelist array. And the third one is a number, which is the space. For example, let me use 9 in here instead of 2, and let's see the result. Such as you see, we have more spaces before the name and more spaces before the city in nested object. And if I use, for example, 0, the space would be 0. And if I log it again, I will see we don't have any spaces between properties. So it's a little for formatting purposes, and I think number 2 is a great number. But besides the number, you can for example use plus plus, or I don't know, minus minus, or plus plus, or anything you like, and you can see the result. Such as you see, before any property we have this added in the stringified JSON in here. Okay, but in most cases the number 2 is the best choice. What about the replacer? Let me add a array for whitelist for the properties I want to be included in the stringified JSON. For example, imagine I want name and I want company and age, and I don't want the password or address to be included. I can add them in here, and if I run it again, you would see we only have name, age, and company in here, and address and password are completely ignored and excluded. Okay, but this function, or this second argument, instead of being a whitelist array, can be a function. Let's add a replacer function in here. For example, I will add replace handler in here, and let me define it here. It can accept key and value, and for example, if the key equals to password, it would return stars, otherwise it would return the actual value. Let's see what is happening here. If I run the code again, I would see a stringified object with its property, but the password is omitted and replaced with some stars in it. Okay, another mystery about json.stringify. If you define a user object or any other object, you can add a method to it. It has to be called exactly to JSON, written exactly like this, and you can return anything you want in here. You can modify the object or do anything. For example, I can add to JSON method in here, which is returning a hard-coded object, or it can be a dynamic object which can iterate through the user. And if you run the code again, but let me disable the replace handler. Okay, if I json.stringify, it would say stringify not allowed in here, or you can use as you want. For example, you can say const new obj equals to for example, imagine you want to include all properties which they have a number or a string or something like that, and you want to exclude any properties which they have another object inside them. In this scenario, I can create a toJSON method, and I can have a new object in here which is going to be returned at last, and I loop through them which in operator, and I say if type of user that key equals to object, just write a nested object for that in a new object, and otherwise return the exact value in the user object. Okay, in this scenario, if I run the code again, such as you see in here, I see name, company, age, password, but the address is not the actual object. It is a string which I wrote it in here already. Okay, the last but not least thing about toJSON. Some objects have toJSON initially. For example, the date has its own toJSON, and when you call json.stringify on it, the JSON stringify first looks for toJSON method in the object. If it be found, the json.stringify first run that code, and the returned value from toJSON would be stringified. Okay, in here let me comment this code and write another code, but in here instead of user I would write birth date, and let's see the result. Okay, when we run it, we see something like this, which is returned from a internal toJSON method which is existed in date class. Hope you enjoyed this. I think this was a very tipful video, and I enjoyed it myself. Comment below your ideas which can improve my videos. I will use them, and I will appreciate your attention. Thanks for watching.